The fire's almost gone. And there's no wood left for miles, Dud. The snow buried all of it.
Forget the fire. The herd's moved on days ago. The fat's gone, Ka. We've got nothing left to eat.
Nothing? Ro, there are 12 of us in this cave. If there's no food and no fire.
The old ones already talked about it. About who walks out into the snow so the children can last the winter.
Walk out into the snow? To die? You can't be serious. There has to be another way to survive this.
Maybe there is. The ground's still warm where the fire sat. If we dug in, slept in a pile.
You really think a trick like that could carry 12 people through the longest night of the year?
Our ancestors did it 100,000 times before us. The real question is how, and whether we're strong enough to do the same.
Right now, you're probably sitting somewhere warm. Maybe there's a heater humming in the background. Maybe you've got a hoodie on. Maybe you just walked past a thermostat without even glancing at it. You've never once in your entire life had to wonder if the cold might actually kill you before morning. Think about that for a second. That's a luxury so total you don't even register it as a luxury. But for almost the entire span of human existence, winter wasn't a season. It was an execution date, arriving every single year, and your ancestors had to outthink it using methods so brutal, so strange, and so genuinely dark that most of them never make it into the textbooks. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what humans were willing to do to see spring, and why some of those instincts are still buried inside you right now. Let's start with the assumption almost everyone gets wrong. When people picture Ice Age survival, they imagine a caveman throwing another log on a roaring fire. Simple, cozy even. But here's the thing. Fire was often the least reliable tool they had, and clinging to it could get you killed. At sites like Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, dated to roughly 29,000 years ago, archaeologist Bohuslav Klima documented something that overturns the cozy campfire image entirely. These people weren't just warming their hands. They were baking the earth. They built their shelters partially into the ground and used the thermal mass of packed soil and mammoth bone to trap heat long after the flames died. Because a fire you have to feed all night is a fire that demands wood you might not have. In a landscape where a single blizzard could bury every branch for miles, fire wasn't comfort. Fire was a debt you paid in fuel, and the ground was the bank. Now here's where it gets interesting. If you can't rely on burning wood all night, you need a body that fights the cold for you. And that's where the diet turns genuinely grim. We think of Ice Age humans as meat eaters, and they were, but not the way you think. Researchers studying the remains at Dolní Věstonice and nearby Pavlov found evidence of a strategy built around fat, not muscle. Lean meat in winter is a trap. Eat only lean protein when you're freezing and starving, and you get something called protein poisoning. The body burns through water and minerals trying to process it, and you can starve to death on a full stomach. So they hunted specifically for the fattiest animals, cracked open bones to drain the marrow, and rendered fat into a survival fuel. Muscle keeps you alive for an afternoon. Fat keeps you alive for a winter. Let that sink in. They figured out advanced nutritional biochemistry with no words for any of it, purely through watching who lived and who died. But hunting itself in deep winter opened a darker door. Here's the part nobody talks about. When the herds moved on and the fat ran out, the choice narrowed to 3 ugly options: move, starve, or eat what remained. And what remained sometimes meant each other. At Gough's Cave in Somerset, England, researchers led by Sylvia Bello of the Natural History Museum, publishing across the 2010s, examined human bones from around 14,700 years ago that showed unmistakable cut marks. Butchery marks identical to the ones on the animal bones beside them. Skulls had been carefully shaped into cups. This wasn't a frenzied last resort scratched out in the dark. It was methodical. And this is where I need to overturn a myth people cling to. The common assumption is that any evidence of cannibalism means desperation. A starving group gone feral, eating the dead because there was nothing else. But Bello's analysis of the Gough's Cave skull cups pushed back hard on that. The precision, the ritual shaping, the deliberate craftsmanship suggests this was culture, not just calories. A practice woven with meaning, possibly honoring the dead by consuming them. Winter didn't just make people hungry. It made hunger sacred. Sit with how strange that is. The same act we'd call the ultimate horror, they may have called a funeral. Here's where it gets darker still and colder. Even if you had fat, fire, and a shelter dug into the earth, you still had to survive the nights. And the nights in glacial Europe could drop past -40. So how do you sleep through that without freezing solid? The transition point people miss is that survival wasn't an individual sport. It was a pile. At multiple Upper Paleolithic sites, the evidence of tightly clustered sleeping arrangements points to communal body heat sharing, bodies packed together, sharing warmth the way emperor penguins do in Antarctic storms, rotating the unlucky ones on the outer edge toward the center. There's a real theory, discussed by researchers examining Neanderthal physiology, that some populations may have relied on extended states of reduced activity through the worst months. Not true hibernation, but a slowing down, a semi-dormant huddle to burn less fuel. Whether or not that goes as far as some claim, the principle is undeniable. Alone in that cold, you were dead. Your only real insulation was other people, which is a slightly humbling thought the next time you're annoyed that someone's sitting too close to you on the bus. Your ancestors would have wept with gratitude for that free heat source. But here's the thing about relying on the group. It meant you couldn't afford to lose anyone, and winter was very good at taking people. This brings us to the coldest math of all. When a hunter-gatherer band faced a winter with too many mouths and not enough fat, someone had to make decisions that no modern person can imagine making. Ethnographic records from Arctic peoples in the historic period, documented by anthropologists studying Inuit communities, such as the work compiled by Asen Balikji and the Netsilik Eskimo, published in 1970, describe the practice of senilicide and infant exposure during famine winters. The elderly, understanding the arithmetic, would sometimes walk out into the snow deliberately so the young could eat. Not because they were unloved, because they were loved, and because the group's survival was the only thing that outranked the individual. 3 impossible outcomes waited at the end of a starving winter. Everyone dies, some are sacrificed, or the strong abandon the weak. There was no fourth option that felt clean. Now here's the part that changes what this whole story is even about. Because up to this point, everything I've described is practical. Cold, calories, and the cruel arithmetic of scarcity. But something else was happening in those long, dark, frozen months, and it might be the most important survival tool of all. Think about what winter actually is from the inside. Months of darkness. Nothing growing, no hunting for weeks, just a group of terrified, hungry humans crammed into a smoky pit in the ground, staring at a fire, waiting to find out if they'd live. And what do you do with all that time and all that fear? You tell stories. You carve. You paint. Here's where it gets interesting, and where the archaeology gets almost unbearably poignant. Some of the greatest art of the Ice Age, the cave paintings of Lascaux in France, dated to around 17,000 years ago, first studied in depth by Abbé Henri Breuil in the mid-20th century, was made deep inside dark caves. In the dead of the season, when there was nothing else to do but survive the inside of your own head. That little carved figure from Dolní Věstonice, the ceramic Venus fired in a kiln around 29,000 years ago, is the oldest known fired clay figurine on Earth. It wasn't made to eat. It wasn't made to hunt. It was made because a freezing, starving human being, staring down the longest night of the year, needed something to mean something. And that, more than the fire or the fat or the huddle, might be the real reason we made it. The winters didn't just test whether humans could endure. They forced us to invent the thing that made endurance bearable. Imagination, ritual, meaning, the story that says we will see the spring. The cold didn't just shape our bodies. It carved out our minds. That's the turn nobody expects. We usually ask how ancient humans survived winter physically. But the deeper truth is that the psychological weapon, the ability to sit in the dark and believe in a tomorrow you can't see, may be the single most human trait we have. And it was forged in exactly these frozen pits. So let's pull the whole thread back through time. Around 2 million years ago, our early ancestors first pushed out of the tropics and met real cold. Then roughly 400,000 years ago, controlled fire became a weapon against the dark. Then about 29,000 years ago, at Dolní Věstonice, humans were baking clay figurines and hollowing shelters into the frozen earth. Then around 17,000 years ago, they were painting Lascaux by firelight. Then roughly 14,700 years ago at Gough's Cave, they were shaping the skulls of their own dead into ritual cups. And then, just a blink ago, a few thousand years, we built walls, then houses, then heaters, then the warm room you are sitting in right now, and here's the callback. Every time winter comes and you gather people close, cook something rich and warm, tell a story in a dark room, or simply refuse to give up hope on the shortest, coldest day of the year. You're not doing something new. You're running the oldest survival program there is, the exact one that carried your ancestors through 100,000 deadly winters to get to you. The cold tried to end us every single year, and every single year we told it a story about spring, and won. So here's what I want to know. If you'd been born into that world staring down the longest night with the fat running low, would you have made it to spring? Tell me in the comments.